We'll call our meeting to order. Appreciate everyone's being here. Today is the 11th of October. It is our regularly scheduled Scott County Fiscal Court business meeting. I would ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that said, then, I will ask Ms. Hamilton to call the roll.
Mr. Hostetler.
Present.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Wallace.
Chad.
Can you text him, Chad?
Mr. Corman.
Present.
Mr. Ellison.
Here.
Mr. Pratt.
See?
Ryan, can you hear us?
Says a no.
That must be the problem.
Yes, I think so.
All right. Chad, can you affirm your attendance?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right.
Mr.
Hey, you don't hear me
Livingston.
now?
We got you, Ryan. Yes, sir.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Mr. Culbertson.
Here.
Judge Covington.
So let the record reflect that
Might want to mute now.
we're 100% in attendance. Just to confirm there was no transfers, right?
Correct.
All right. So the first item to consider is our minutes from 9:26 and 9:30. I don't see any reason why we can't consider those together. Those minutes were shared by email. Are there any questions or comments related to those? Motion from Mr. Hostetler.
Second.
Second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. There were no transfers, so we'll go to 6 bills and hand checks. From the general to jail is $200,000. Clerk storage to software management, $909. And then from LGEA to Hamilton Hinkle, $42,648.21. Any questions or comments related to the bills and hand checks as presented?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Livingston.
Second.
Second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let the record reflect that sheriff's fees in the amount of $80,983.31 were submitted. Let the record reflect that clerk fees in the amount of $150,367.79 were submitted by the clerk.
Make a motion, but I'm slightly disappointed in the lowering of the amount.
Yes.
0.
But we don't have to have a motion, so we're good. Chris, are you going to present the EMS new hires? And then the reason Jeff's not here is because I think he's out preparing for the Service Awards Program Employee Appreciation. So thanks for being here.
Good morning, Judge Magistrates. I'd like to present 3 names for you to consider for full-time employees.
I might get you the full stack.
Yep. Full staffing.
Motion. Second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. With that said, we have regional economic development. We have a resolution, and this resolution was shared by email. And just want to go over a few things before we consider the resolution. And I've asked Michael George to be on Zoom today, and R.J. Palmer is with us from Compass Municipal Advisors. And just looking at some numbers and sharing some numbers with you all. Zach, if you could put up you go to the next slide. I just wanted to go over some numbers, and these are estimates, and we know they're estimates, but these numbers were actually used on a community project funding application for Congressman Barr for a grant. So if you're looking at doing as we did at Lane's Run, and you're looking at some site estimated costs, and some of these have came from our local GMWSS estimates, and then Jack helped put together these as well. So if you're looking at doing a regional park or a business park on the site that we've discussed, you're looking at $9.8 million to $25,000 for site acquisition, 1.5 for natural gas extension work, 4.1 for wastewater, and then roads would be an estimate of $2 million. So that gets you to approximately 17.4.
Judge, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you ask, we're just seeing the Zoom, like chat, I can't see the.
Can you share the screen, Zach? I'm sorry, Ryan.
Very good.
Are you good now?
Got it.
All right. So there's just some estimated costs, and these are estimates, but they're estimates. They're looking at infrastructure that would be needed to get up and running immediately. Phase 2, say 5, 6, 10 years down the road, I do not have a crystal ball, but when you went in to do phase 2, what's been shared with us, you would need a water booster pump station, an elevated tank, which would be about 12.4. Wastewater would be around 6. Additional roads would be another 2. So for phase 2, that would get you to about $20.4 million. You combine those two, my math had us at 37.8. So if we go to the next slide, and you look at, at the meeting the other night, there was a conversation that a lot of the grant conversation was built on hope, and there's no guarantee. So let's just say we don't get any grant other than the PDI grant. And then you look at the partner community equity contribution. So the PDI grant would be about 4.3. The partner community equity contribution would be 4.1. That gets you to 8.5. Georgetown and Scott County are each going to put in 1.75 each, because the conversation's always been that we equal partners, and that would give you a $12 million figure there on the total of what's going in there at the start. So you would subtract those costs, and that would, from the PDI and the partner community equity contribution, that gets you down to 29,376. And if we didn't get any grants, which I think is not realistic, we are going to be competitive for federal and state dollars. But we would divide the cost by 3, the way the interlocal is set up. So that gets you there at 9.7 each. Now, we do have to add in our equity to that. So going to the next page, if you went local, that's just between the city of Georgetown and the Scott County Fiscal Court. You're going to take that and we got no grants, just comparing it the same. And even if we were local, we would get some grant money. I don't think we'll get as much grant money as we do collaboratively and regionally. You still got to live with that big picture of funding $37,870,600. Now, yes, you're going to do that in phases, but and then yes, you do property sales at the site that goes to expenses, and you can get down deep in the weeds, but the big picture is at $37 million. So if you go to the next slide, and I asked Michael last night, I asked Michael George with Compass Municipal Advisors, I said, Michael, if we did this and just used $38 million and we wanted to bond that over 15 to 20 years, what would be an estimated annual bond payment and total cost over the term if we built out the park in 2 phases? So let's say we bonded it at 15 years, that initial 17.5, it would be around $1.6 million annual debt service. And then if we came back in 5 or 6 years, and I just said 5, and bonded out the rest, that 20.5 at 15 years, Michael shared with me, he said the annual debt service would be about 1.9 on that portion. However, he would recommend structuring the payments on the second bond around the first one so that the total debt service on the 2 bond issues would be about 3.1. Everybody understand that? We'd wrap it together. And then I said, what would be an estimated annual bond payment? Well, that's the 3.1, and the total cost over the 2 terms. And Michael got back with me. He said the total principal and interest of the 2 bonds is an estimated $54 million. And RJ's here with us today, and RJ, that's a realistic number. Would you agree?
Correct.
All right. So that's at $54 million. So let's go. So we've talked about costs, regional and local. And yes, we would split that with the city, but it's a significant cost. So let's go to the next slide. And here's some just general revenue assumptions. Total new businesses, we were using 8. Assumed build-out period, 10 years. Real intangible capital investment, it's $930 million. So job assumptions, we're assuming 1,414 jobs at $38 an hour. Part-time jobs, 156. Average hourly part-time, 25. So the property tax and pilot payment, any pilot payment, I'll talk about that in just a second. But what we're talking about is occupational license tax, insurance premium tax. We did not include net profit. Did not include that. So if you go to the next slide, revenues, tax revenues are estimated, do not factor in the business park expenses. The revenues include property taxes, OLT, and insurance premium. So if you've got a total collections estimated at 61.6 through 2024 through 2025 through 2055, 61.6 million. And then if the parties wanted to do any, and this would be up to the parties, any payment in lieu of taxes, that's essentially an incentive that you would forego the tax payment, and
Like Toyota did.
right. So it's the number that Michael used was 3.6 in his calculations. So that would get you down. So the number we're really using is $58 million of tax revenue that includes property and OLT and insurance premium. If we had a regional park or if we had a local effort, and Jack, you're shaking your head, I hope you're saying yes. That $58 million is the revenues that we would be looking at. And let me remind you, net profits are not included. So from that the way the interlocal is set up, Scott County Fiscal Court in the city of Georgetown would realize of that $11,617,222 each, and that includes the host share. Yes,
But I don't think that's accurate because we don't collect insurance premium taxes, and they
but
would
we
have
will
to.
at here. We will.
No, we won't.
No.
They
Yes.
will.
No.
Are they agreeing to split their insurance premium tax?
Yes.
They'll have to vote on that, though.
And that's in the interlocal.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that question, Mr.
And
Livingston.
I just want to get it out there
Yeah.
publicly.
Yeah, Mr. Insurance Guy. So that gets us to $23,234,222 combined.
And that's through 20.
That's through 2055. And then LFUCG would collect, their share estimate would be $17,425,833. Madison, Berea, and Richmond, their share would be the same, that 33%, but they divide it up according to the interlocal agreement. So the one thing that I don't want you to leave off that's in the interlocal is consideration of future revenues from future parks in different counties. That has to be a part of this equation. And what I believe would be a fair number that Georgetown and Scott County would split would be that $17,425,833. It's the same shares, the same setup, the same time period, and estimates that we have here currently. Now, if we transfer that to a new park that was being built in Madison or Fayette, that's what I think that you could fairly estimate. And then one other item, no matter what, if we went regional or if we stayed local, because there's been, I'm just trying to compare the two because there's been conversation and questions about why don't we do this ourselves. If we went either way, the Scott County Board of Education between 2024 and 2055 would collect in property tax and OLT an estimated $42 million. And that would go towards the school system's expenses. And but that's regardless if it's a local project or a regional project. So I go back to just in general talking. I think no one would question. Maybe you do, but going regionally, we're going to be much more competitive, and we'll be able to compete for federal and state dollars, in my estimate, and that's going to get that cost, those initial costs down, and the cost over time, and then. Yes, we would get some money locally if we went locally, but I don't think it would be as much. And no matter what, we would have to bond a significant portion of that infrastructure. It might not be the total, but I just showed you if you bonded the total, it's going to be $54 million. And no matter what, your collections are going to be 61.6 without any pilot, and 58 million with a pilot. So the regional approach, dividing the expenses, having the opportunity to compete, in my mind, more for state and federal dollars to get that cost down. And then the other piece of information that we didn't put up there is what about the 1,400 jobs that could be here if we do this, that will pay an average of $70,000 a year. And 1,400 times 70 is really close to $100 million. And that goes into our economy, and it goes into people's pockets. And then that indirect expense goes out. They buy houses, they buy cars, they buy gas, they buy groceries. And that indirect expense goes back into our economy and spurs needed growth, and that money comes back to us too, because other businesses will flourish, and those net profits, OLT, hiring more people, it's just a cycle. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about what I've just shared. I hope that you consider all the facts, and then I think this is important. I have prayed about this and really put a lot of thought into it. I think it's important. So, Cam, will you read
yes,
that
sir.
unless there's some comments or questions?
I'll make one comment, and this goes to the regional versus the local. And I'm gonna put my banker's hat on, but if I came in and had 3 strong borrowers on a deal versus 1, it makes it a lot better.
Actually, more than 3.
Well,
'Cause
more
you
than
got
3.
the other
Right, you got 3
cities.
counties and 6 entities.
Yeah.
But, there's risks to every project. We don't have that crystal ball, but when you put 3 strong partners on there, it really helps the deal. So I really like the regional myself. That's my comment.
Comments down here?
One question, and I think, excuse me. This is going from memory from all the discussions we've had, the current business park as it stands now. Is it about a $2 million a year revenue? Does anybody know if that number, is that an accurate number?
Yes, the information that I put together, because it was all this, the companies obviously are proprietary, nobody can get their data individually. So I asked Scott Hall, and I gave him the list of every company that I knew. Obviously, there are some LLCs that have own ownership of the company that are not Country Boy, but that would be an example, so it would be somebody else. I gave him that cumulative list for fiscal 23-24. The number that he came up with on occupational tax and net profit tax for that fiscal year was $1.8 million. There was an additional $75,000 of ad valorem tax. However, there were 4 or 5 companies who had not filed their tax return for that. They did extensions, but had another company that was delinquent for a number of years. So Scott's opinion to me was that number ought to be $2 million. So we've got less, so the number about 2.1 million.
But we're also still not built out there, so there's more still coming from that out there, in future.
Well, so I did a little math. I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking, praying about this as well, and kind of struggling with it. I've been on both sides of the fence. So my quick math, which I'm not really a math guy, but my phone is. So trying to apply this formula to the 2 million, I just use round figures. And so when you boil it all down, it looks like, in my math, that it's about 400,000 to the county and 400,000 using this formula that we have in front of us. It's a little under 400,000, but I'm rounding off 400,000 to the county and 400,000 to the city, if I've done that correctly. That's one of the things that I've been running through my head, using that number. Thanks, Jack. I think you had maybe spit that number out at one of our meetings in the past, so just using that number. Thank you, Judge.
Any other questions or comments?
I don't want to put Jack on the spot, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but you know about what the payroll is out there total?
Let me give you the number that I use, which the judge.
Maybe I'll get to
referred to.
microphone.
Hey,
On the live stream.
would you come to live stream? I'm sorry.
The number that I use is a cumulative again also. So I use KY stats and also what's called Chimera economics. If you look at what the judge was referring to, the data for the first quarter of 2024 was average weekly wages for manufacturing in our community was $1,530 a week. If you take that number times 52, that's $79,000. If you take an average and what Compass did, that $25 to $30 an hour, that's probably relatively close, but I think it's low. And does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, no, it does. I'm just trying to go back to Joe Pat's last comment about, the total payroll and how much of that money would actually go back in the community is a big piece of this picture for me.
Well, but again, we're missing a very, very strong component, and the judge dealt with it. When we put together the KPDI application for the regional project, I infused within that 5 return on investment models. All of the models that we prepare, and this comes through Commerce Lexington to the University of Louisville, is the direct impact and the indirect impact. And that's what we're not figuring that out.
Right.
So that's really, really critical. And then I would also go back to what the judge and I talk about a lot is commuting patterns. We have 18,000, this is, again, 24 data, 18,000 people come in here every day to work into here. So they may not be paying the school tax, but they're certainly paying the local city and county occupational tax. They're spending their money and then they're going back out. That's critical to understand what that does for our economy, which also, and I could go on forever, as you all know. If that doesn't speak regionalism, I don't know what does.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And I'll say one more time. We went down this road and we looked for a site, and the site that's in the interlocal agreement, it was for sale. We put an option on it. If we don't move forward with a business park there, it is my opinion that it'll be a residential development with homes there, and it would be a greater impact on traffic than a business park at this site. And I think it's, Dwayne, you touched on it the other day. That's what it boils down to. And any other comments?
One more. And Jack kind of reminded me of this, but all the folks coming in, going out, and there are a lot of Scott Countyans that leave Scott County and go elsewhere. It goes both ways, and there's that benefit. But the thing that it creates in my mind, and it's why we're here actually in my mind, is providing, services, EMS, roads, fire, all of those things. And so there'll be an increase, and I think this agreement actually deals with that. That's section 2.04. I don't know how you would figure, it takes somebody smarter than me, but how you would figure that impact, because that happens really daily. We experience it all the time. I guess you look at EMS runs, police runs, sheriff's department fire department runs, however you would try to calculate that. I think that's tried to be provided for in here and acknowledge that. So just want to kind of highlight that too. That's
back to that, and same thing to Joe. If it goes residential, you have that same impact, and maybe quicker. You build any type of. I've been thinking about build times and things like that. Even if we are shovel ready with infrastructure and those types of things, you're still always looking at a 18-month to 2-year build out on most big commercial type of things. I'd say 18 months is probably a safe average. So homes don't take that long, so, and we see it happening in other places, but you can pop up a lot of houses really fast that makes your infrastructure, your response times, your response amounts a lot higher, a lot quicker. So I've been, thinking through that and thinking through the build times and how long will it take to develop, how long will it take to recruit somebody in, because it seems to never happen quickly, especially on that end. I know even for me when I'm trying to build a school, it goes as quick as you want it to be. So even if you are ready to go through all the hurdles that there are. So again, to me, this helps slow growth while also getting the benefit of the overall package of providing jobs, for providing services, less traffic. That's where I'm at.
So it's funny, yesterday at work they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And they're like, "Your face is like so red." And I took my blood pressure and it's like through the roof. And I have no worries at work right now, no worries at home. It's this. And it's like Rick said the other night, this has kept me up because the long-term impact of what this decision is going to be over the next 25, 30, 40 years, I don't want anybody to ever look back and say, God, they were stupid. You know, you want to make the right things, just like, you know, your kids, your dogs, you want to do the right thing for them, and make sure you're making the right decisions. And I still have tremendous concerns on it. And, you know, one is leaving the ultimate decisions down the road to a non-elected board. And I go back to, and I mentioned this to Jack, I go back to planning and zoning. The implement property out 25 that was deemed agriculture. That's supposed to be a green belt. That's not supposed to, that's to prevent us growing into Lexington and Louisville, or Lexington and Nicholasville, where one end, you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. But we let a business in there. And the way that it's, the way there are no restrictions, there are no, the way it's done, if that company left, it could become a car dealer. But then yet right next door, there was a church that owned the property that wanted to sell it to an implement dealer that did end up coming to town, but that would have been a better location for them. But we voted that down. I think Chad and I were the two that voted in favor of the zone change. And you go today and you look at the heavy equipment that is at that implement dealer, and it's no different than what we said couldn't go on that church's property when they wanted to sell it. And we picked winners and losers that day. And I don't like picking winners and losers like that, especially a non-elected board, because they're not accountable to our citizens. We are accountable every day of the week, and every 4 years especially. So I have concerns that, you know, Joe and I have talked, and Joe's made the comment that, David, you know, planning and zoning. I'm like, yeah, but once it goes there, it's out of our hands. It's over with. And if the city annexes it, it's completely out of our hands at that point as a fiscal court. You know, we have to trust the partners that we're going into business with, and I do. I know most of them personally, and they are great leaders for their community. And I believe they're very transparent, and I don't think they would do anything to harm a fellow county or city. But then my mind goes back to the Lexington City Council when we were dealing with the landfill. And they were trying to jam that down our throat and do everything they could for us to keep the landfill open when we didn't want to. So we've got Lexington trying to jam their thoughts down our throat. And actually, Joe, this was during COVID, and Joe and I actually attended one of their council meetings virtually to express our opinions on, this was a Scott County issue that Fayette County, Lexington, Fayette, Irby County government needs to stay out of it. It doesn't affect them. They can go find somebody else to pick up their trash. They don't need us to be their dumping ground. So the leadership that's in place right now and all these partners are fantastic, but that doesn't mean it's that way going forward. And it doesn't mean that they don't appoint people with ulterior motives going forward. And we can't do anything about that. I'd like to see the agreement have better guardrails, deed restrictions, ultimate veto power. You know, I used the example of NATO. So there's 5 permanent members that have ultimate veto power. If everybody else in NATO wants to do something, one of those 5 can shut it down. And I think the host county or the host city should have the ultimate veto power. That if it's not good for Madison County citizens, Fayette County citizens, Scott County citizens, then we have the opportunity, or they have the opportunity when the park is going into their place to say, we're not doing this. And that helps avoid a decision being jammed down our throat, because we're not going to be here. I'm going to venture to say we're not going to be here 10 years from now, 12 years from now. It's 3 terms, 12 years from now. I mean, I'll be 77. I don't want to be sitting up here at 77. I want to be somewhere, but not here. Not in the ground either. But I think about what the unintended consequences are, and you can't always figure those out. And so when you can't figure them out, your mind goes to what's the bad things that could happen. And so I just wish, I love the idea, I agree with the idea, the framework of everything. I just wish we had better guardrails in place as to tightening up that group that is going to be appointed cannot take it upon the liberty of themselves to change the framework of what we wanted to do down the road.
And I would say, David, everything that you've said has gone through my head as well, and I have thought back and forth. We've talked about many of those things. I go back to planning and zoning being our local control, and then the two board members that this body will have voice in on who goes into that for us. You have the ability to communicate your thoughts and such, but ultimately it's their vote. It's the way the state statute sets up a regional industrial development authority.
But what I'm getting at is down the road, it's not going to be our
I know, but ifs and buts, and I weigh the greater good, and like this is a big deal, and gone back and forth of it, but I think about the greater good of, on that 400 acres being, the potential for jobs, the potential for folks to make a living, and the potential to keep people in our community, the young people that are growing up, and all those things. So I stack and weigh those back and forth, and this is sat on me as well. But I think the greater good is looking at the interlocal and trying to move forward, and I think ultimately in the long run, our community will be the better for it.
Can I call?
Ryan, yes, sir.
Hopefully I'm not busting everybody's ears out there. I know it's pretty loud sometimes.
You're fine.
Reporting to you all live from Tampa, Hurricane Rapids, Tampa, getting some people out of here. First thing I'd like to point out is in 12 years later, I'm just going to be in my mid-50s, so it's not fair like that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, I've talked with Joe Bad, I've talked with the board. I wanted to keep control of the park. I'm all for the park, I'm all for the land, I'm all for everything it would do. But I want us and the city of Georgetown to control the park and the future of our community. And there's a lot of stuff, I heard a lot of stuff David said, and I can keep going into more stuff, but I'm just going to sum it all down and say, I want us to control it. And anybody that's for it, I'm not going for it, I'm holding no ill will for anybody, but that's not where I am, it's not where my heart is, and I just want us to control it in the future. So, I've said before, I'll say again, I'll be voting no, but I get a lot of people are voting yes. I just want to keep that control.
Thank you, Ryan. Respect that.
I want to say the same thing as Dave. I woke up early this morning. I was like, how can we keep control? Because that would seem to be the big thing Wednesday, is most people were saying, we're going to lose control. We're going to lose control. So how could we keep control? Could the host community have more board members than the other communities? That way you can have that vote. If you have more board members, you could keep control.
I don't think you could do that, though, because how do you get, if we put a park in Madison County, how do you give them more board members than us?
Well,
that's why I say with the veto power that if it's
you can have, by statute, you can have 6 to 8 board members.
Yeah.
The thought process is we're equal investors, we're equal partners, and we got to trust each other.
But it's in our county, and if it goes in Madison County, I think they should have control, or Fayette County, they should have control. That's the way I feel.
On that issue, on those because it's the same board. I think we're getting confused that
Oh, yeah.
it's not a different board.
It wouldn't be a
It'd be the
different
same
board.
six, the same
So the
six.
veto power, that would come back to the court or the city, or in Madison.
I think
case,
veto
they're-
power-
They're three entities.
You know, I think what, and I wish we witnessed this last night a little bit. I mean, a little bit of veto power resides with your planning and zoning and your comp plans and things like that, because they have to go in front of those folks, and then those ultimately then have to come to us if there's a change to whatever that,
Yeah.
you know, is going to be. If you zone it this way though, light industrial, then it's, you know, then it has to go through development plan type of things.
Yeah.
And then go in front of the planning and zoning, things like that. So, you know, that gives public input, that gives us, you know, voice
Yeah.
on all those sites, not just the overall site. And with from my understanding, going through all the comp plan talks about this type of specific program, BP1, that we have even more powers, I guess you would say, to set the land up and lots up and restrictions and all those things even more so. So I like that avenue a lot about it, of that control versus, you know, just a normal, even the lanes run. You know, we don't have that much control there as we would with this one.
Yeah, but this is different than Lanes Run, because it's gonna be regional. We got partners
True.
coming in with us.
Right.
You know, right now, we just partnered with Georgetown Lanes Run, but this is a totally new concept.
No, I think
There's
everybody.
gonna be some headaches and hiccups
Sure.
along the way, and we all know that. but
Sure.
Where do we try to come up with? And then there's another one, like the money side of it. I feel like the host community should get 50%, straight up 50% of the revenues. That's my opinion. I don't know how everybody else feels, because the numbers I just went through, what Joe Pat put up there, we're gonna get $375,000 a year over that 31 years. Now, it could go more than that, we know that, it could be less, but that's just, on average, that's what we get to the court. If we gotta provide those services, is that enough to take care of those services? I don't know what it would cost us as far as our services we'd have to provide out there.
The city's getting the same though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, well, and it's not really just 375,000.
Well,
I
the
grasp that
indirect
concept
money is.
because the power of the
And
dollar
direct,
being turned
indirect.
over. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Which we have to look
5
at
to
that
7
too.
times probably. at the end of
I'm
the
not
day.
against any of this. I think it's the way to go. I think we have more power and getting more money, federal dollars, state dollars, when we're a group as compared to one person going in. I think we could get more grants, and it could work out well for us.
well, is it even possible to have those tweaks, or is it a state, like, you know, like
No,
this is the state plan?
interlocal. We have talked about this interlocal, and you know, it's drafted. We've shared it.
Sure.
It's just a fluid
starting
document.
point.
This is the draft that's being presented in conversations with the partners. It's always been equal investment, equal, you know, shares, and a partnership. Just like if you went into a partnership with 2 other people to build a company, it's a partnership, and you got to trust your partners. And when we go, and in this document, it talks about future parks. The intent is the charge of this board will be to go develop another park in another county, Madison or Fayette. And when that's done, it's going to be set up just like that. And we'll have, you know, the shares, if the shares are the same, which it's planned to be, you know, you'll have, you know, you'll have equal shares and equal
Right.
influence.
And so if you know, if we're having the same discussion and Madison County's doing the same thing, you know, we're going to get the benefit of their park and not do anything and not have any impact to our community, but we're going to get that revenue.
And we'll get that revenue that I showed. You know, if there's a park in Madison, and yes, we'll have to put up some equity up front, but then we'll go chase grants just like that for here. This is a long-term investment. And we're gonna get a share from there. It's a partnership, and that, when we put together the interlocal, it was based on equal partnership and equal investment. And yes, you've got you've got an entity that's working, but the whole goal is to profit, and the whole goal is to be able to help the communities that are involved, all the communities, and by having a partnership, we're going to be more competitive for grants, and what I can't get away from is if we went and did it by ourselves, the $58 million of OLT, occupational license, the OLT, the insurance premium, and the property tax, that $58 million, that's still the same number. And I showed you all what Michael shared with the estimated costs of how much it would cost to bond that out. $54 million would be the principal and interest to pay that off. So you got $58 million that that you're estimated to bring in, and if you went by yourself and you didn't, if we didn't put any general fund dollars in to get the amount down, and I'm just assuming that, you can't get away from $54 million. Who would vote today to go put those bonds out by ourselves, knowing that our return is only 58, and we know that yes, we're getting this indirect income, yeah, but we're a regional, like, have we shared how many people come into our county, how many people go out, and if we do the regional approach, we still get the local school tax monies that will flow in. But I could not sit here and vote to move forward and by ourselves, knowing the risk and the reward. That's just big to me. And let me say again, this has weighed on me. I have considered it all, the impacts of neighbors, just the whole thing. But the greater good is what I keep going back to, and that's the thing. Anything else?
I have a question. Is there anything, I was reading the interlocal again this morning. Is there anything that requires any participating agency or a local partner, if they build a business park, that we have to be a part of it? Like if Madison or Fayette build a business park, they just do it on their own and not even include us?
Ryan, let me make sure I'm answering your question. If Madison and Fayette are entering into this interlocal, and this Regional Industrial Development Authority is going to be a board, and their task is to look at developing this park, look at developing other parks in other counties. Now, are you asking if Madison, Berea, Richmond, or the city of Lexington wanted to go out and build something on their own separately? I don't think it prohibits them. It does not prohibit them. So, but I really think from working with the people that I've been working with, that their goal is promoting this regional approach. And yes, Lexington already has a business park. Legacy Park is what they call it. We have Lanes Run. I know Berea has a park down there. So there's these existing parks, but I think the same story I've heard from them is that we need more property, and the regional approach is why they're, they've spent, like I've spent, we have all spent a lot of time trying to navigate to get to this point, and with this interlocal agreement. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did.
Anything else?
But on Ryan's question, if if there is a park to be built in Madison County, are we required by this agreement to be a part of that board?
No, we are not.
So we would lose our voice and all that,
We-
that they
we-
could do it.
We would still have voice on our board, but it would, that, we do not have to, when it comes, we are not, our hands are not tied.
Okay.
And RJ, you're shaking your head, yeah. Michael, you're on there. That's a correct answer, correct?
Yeah, I'll just add, there's a section in the interlocal about the approval of future projects, which allow you all the ability to participate or not participate in future projects. And then to Ryan's point, I guess, you're correct in that other entities can, develop other business parks outside of this, and that has been discussed, and the idea was that everyone has that right, just like you all have the right to continue to develop Lake Runner without any input from the other parties. And so, I think legally speaking, I may be getting out of my legal expertise, but you all have that flexibility other ways.
Damn, that's what you.
Yeah, I mean, in this, follow up on what you just said, the section of the interlocal agreement, section 3.05, which deals with future business parks, it requires the authority to present a written description of the park, and it also requires the governing body of each entity to adopt a resolution to approve it. So therefore, it would come to the fiscal court, if y'all didn't want to do it, you don't have to. There is also provision in there about coming up with share percentages for each municipality based on their contribution. So I guess presumably if Scott County didn't want to participate, that may be fine. That may be something that could be worked through, but you just wouldn't get any share percentage. Is that, you think, Michael? Yeah.
That's what I.
That's correct. The board would be able to allocate revenue to the new project as they did based on the share percentage of that project.
But you're not locked in, any future business park, there's a provision in here where they got to take resolutions to every jurisdiction to approve or not.
So, any other questions?
One more question. In here somewhere, it seems like I read that the board would retain 25%.
There's a section in there, and it's for anticipated expenses. And Cam, can you read that?
Yeah. As soon as I find it, right here.
2.04.
Yeah, 2.04. One of these sentences that lawyers wrote with 9,000 commas. Any excess funds in a particular year shall be distributed by the board among the parties in accordance with their then applicable respective share percentages for each business park in accordance with Exhibit B on or before each May 1st, provided, however, that the authority may additionally reserve an amount up to 25% of its annual budgeted operating expenditures when determining any amount subject to distribution hereunder. A party may refund its share of excess funds to the authority at its sole discretion as authorized by its governing body. No such discretionary refund shall affect the party's share percentages.
I'm a little confused on it. I don't know if that's something they take every year, or is it just a pot they grow and hold?
Michael, would you like to?
That's to
You
address
look like you
operating
wanted to.
expenses.
I think you'd have to show your operating expenses.
What's the intent behind that, Michael?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and a lot of this originated from the fact that the parties did not want to give the full control over the distributions of the revenue. The idea was that when there's profits in the business park, they must be distributed to the parties. And so that was the intent of the language, and then we came back and said, okay, well, if the RETA has an operating budget of $100,000 and expenses for the RETA comes in at $105,000, the RETA doesn't want to be in a position to have to come back to these entities and ask for $1,000 to cover a small amount of operating expenses. So the idea was that they have the ability to take up to 25% of that budget and put it expenses and the actual expenses. And so the 25% was just the number that we agreed upon, thinking that that would cover any discrepancies. But the intent is still to distribute all of the revenues out of the RETA. The idea is just that, the parties did not want the board that to come back to the fiscal courts and the city councils for, $1,000 appropriations to cover, the water bill that came in July or something like that.
It's essentially just like a reserve.
Yeah,
But-
reserve,
But they're required to submit budgets. They are required to, everything has to be done in open meetings. They will be audited. They are subject to, the special governmental entity designation is what they'll go under, and they're subject to all of that. So disbursements, revenues, all of that budget, it's all subject to just the same thing as we have.
And I keep hearing us use the word they. They's going to be a couple of us,
Yeah.
right? I mean, 2 of the 6 are going to be, us.
It will not be a member of the fiscal court.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Representative Scott County.
It's somebody from Scott County that has
So-
business sense, that's respected,
Right,
got
right,
good
right.
character, and all
So-
those things.
So there is there's a us to it too. That's a part of that.
Well, who picks those though? Okay.
After,
Along with the city,
along with the city.
right?
Yeah.
I guess maybe they'd pick one, the court would pick.
I think it's both joint.
Jointly, yeah.
By statute, it's both jointly, or by the agreement.
Two other comments, and then we'll be done. It's already been said, so I won't rehash most of it, but I've thought of all of these things as well. I know everybody up here has been thinking of all this stuff. The local control's a big issue, all the financials. But one of the comments I want to make is, Judge, I appreciate the fact that you do this on every issue. I appreciate the fact that you get all the information you can find. And we have disagreed on issues in the past, but you've never failed. And I don't think you have on this one. I appreciate all the folks that have participated, including the citizens who have come in with their concerns, but all the other folks like Jack and others who have helped us in this process with the information. Personally, and I don't think I'm alone with this, but personally, I appreciate all that you do and dig up and lay it in front of us, and gives us the opportunity to make our decisions. I thank you for that.
That's important to me, and this is, like I said, this is a very important thing, and we've tried to lay it out. We've tried to do our due diligence. If there's no other questions, I think it's time to call the question. With that said, will you read the resolution, and
Yes, sir.
then we'll go from there.
All right. Scott County Fiscal Court, Resolution Number 24-23. A resolution of the Scott County Fiscal Court regarding an economic development partnership with Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, Kentucky, County of Madison, Kentucky, County of Scott, Kentucky, City of Berea, Kentucky, City of Georgetown, Kentucky, and the City of Richmond, Kentucky, and authorizing the county judge executive to represent the Scott County Fiscal Court in entering into an interlocal cooperation agreement. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court is responsible for the welfare of the people of Scott County, Kentucky, and whereas providing economic opportunity and growth is necessary for the welfare of the people of Scott County, Kentucky, and whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court also recognizes that in the current economic development environment, opportunities for growth may be better realized by partnering with other local governments, and whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court has voted to join Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, Kentucky, the County of Madison, Kentucky, the City of Berea, Kentucky, the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, and the City of Richmond, Kentucky, in establishing a multi-county nonprofit industrial development authority and entering into an interlocal cooperation agreement. And whereas an interlocal cooperation agreement by and among Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, Kentucky, the County of Madison, Kentucky, the County of Scott, Kentucky, City of Berea, Kentucky, the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, and the City of Richmond, Kentucky, was publicly presented to the members of the Scott County Fiscal Court, hereinafter agreement. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court desires to adopt a resolution setting forth that the county judge executive is the authorized signer for an interlocal cooperation agreement in satisfaction of the Interlocal Cooperation Act, KRS 65.210, KRS 65.300, so that this resolution can be submitted to any entity desiring to have written verification of what is set forth herein. Now therefore be it hereby resolved by the Scott County Fiscal Court as follows. 1, that the Scott County Fiscal Court does hereby appoint and designate the Scott County Judge Executive as its authorized representative for all matters relating to entering into an interlocal cooperation agreement with the Lexington and Fayette Urban County Government, Kentucky, the County of Madison, Kentucky, the City of Berea, Kentucky, the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, and the City of Richmond, Kentucky. That the Scott County Fiscal Court does hereby resolve that the Scott County Judge Executive shall have the authority to sign the agreement and any and all documents necessary and appropriate for entering into the agreement. 3, the Scott County Fiscal Court adopts this resolution as an ongoing matter and affirmatively states that the authority granted to the Scott County Judge Executive hereby shall continue without the necessity of further votes or action of the Scott County Fiscal Court. 4, that the Scott County Fiscal Court shall have the power to revoke the grant of authority set forth herein by majority vote of the Scott County Fiscal Court, this 11th day of October 2024.
Any other questions or comments? I think it's appropriate to do a roll call vote. Ms. Hamilton?
Mr. Hostetler?
I'm a no.
I think it's appropriate to do a roll call vote after a motion. I just thought it was important to do a roll call vote.
You're right.
I'll make the motion to approve.
So we have a motion and we have a second. So we need to have a,
Wayne.
yes.
Okay, now, Mr. Hostetler?
I'm a no.
Mr. Jones?
At this time, because of the control issue, I'm gonna vote no.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Corman?
Yes.
Mr. Ellison?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
No.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
Judge Covington?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We'll move forward together, as we always have, and respect everybody's thoughts and value everybody's thoughts. And, you know, I think this court has always tried to be very, responsive and tried to listen, and we've demonstrated that as well.
Question. So I know we passed it, but in the future, we can ratify this agreement, right?
Cam,
What do you mean?
Like, say the other cities, the other entities come up and say the same thing we're doing. We'd like to have control. We could go back and negotiate.
Yeah, you can always,
With
it can
these.
always be amended at a later date by agreement of the parties. And to your point, and I think Joe Pat addressed this a couple days ago, you know, over the next few weeks, I think this is going to be presented to each municipality, and they're all going to have discussions like you just had, so we'll see where that goes.
I think all of them have scheduled work sessions, all of them scheduled time to vote before the end of October. And I think the city of Georgetown, I think their Monday night meeting is the 28th.
That's right.
I think that's when they are scheduled to move forward. So
You mentioned work sessions. Are you going to attend any of those? Like Judge Taylor came.
I probably will.
So-
yeah. So the next resolution is essentially a resolution that allows this court to consider essentially shares that the Scott County Fiscal Court agrees to be responsible for administering the funds awarded from the Economic Development Fund and shall make disbursements, therefore in accordance with guidelines of the Economic Development Fund. So this is not in support or against, it's just saying that we will agree to administer the funds and be the physical agent, essentially. Is that how you would?
Yep.
Would you read it, Cam?
All right, Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution Number 24-24. A resolution of the Fiscal Court of Scott County, Kentucky, supporting submittal of an economic development application to the Kentucky Economic Development Cabinet by Scott County for property acquisition, due diligence, and road and infrastructure improvements, the creation of the Triple Crown Business Park located within Scott County, Kentucky. Whereas the Central Kentucky Business Park Authority, an industrial authority, is under option to purchase certain real property and facilities thereon located in the county of Georgetown, I should say Scott, I'll fix that, Scott, Kentucky. And whereas Central Kentucky Business Park Authority is engaged in acquiring land for the creation of the Triple Crown Business Park and conducting due diligence on the site, along with road and infrastructure improvements, which will leverage a $9,525,000 investment. And whereas it is expected that the project will have a positive impact on the local and regional economies, as the creation of the Triple Crown Business Park will provide increased industry in Scott County, all to the benefit of the citizens and residents of the region. And whereas, further, the project will enhance the economic position of Scott County and surrounding region, including Fayette and Madison counties, by causing new residents and income to be injected into the local economy, improving the quality of life. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court, for the reasons above stated, desires to support the request of the Central Kentucky Business Park for up to $4,375,000 in funding for the project from the Kentucky Economic Development Cabinet through the Economic Development Fund, or EDF, program, which funding will enable the Central Kentucky Business Park to provide substantial employment for residents of the county and surrounding region. And whereas it is appropriate that this resolution be adopted in order to evidence such support, now therefore be it resolved and ordered by the Fiscal Court of Scott County, Kentucky, as follows. Section 1, it is hereby found, determined, and declared the statements of fact set forth in the preamble to this resolution are true and accurate in all respects, and the preamble and all of the recitals therein are incorporated in this resolution by reference as if set forth verbatim herein. Section 2, the Scott County Fiscal Court hereby supports the request of the Central Kentucky Business Park Authority for funding from the Kentucky Economic Development Cabinet through the Economic Development Fund for land acquisition, due diligence, and road and infrastructure upgrades for the Triple Crown Business Park. Furthermore, the Scott County Fiscal Court agrees to be responsible for administering the funds awarded from the Economic Development Fund and shall make disbursements thereof in accordance with guidelines of the Economic Development Fund. Section 3, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its adoption, and done this 11th day of October 2024.
So questions or comments? Would there be a motion? Motion from Mr. Jones. Second from Mr. Corman. I do believe, just to keep up with the consistency, I'll ask for a roll call vote on this one.
Mr. Hostetler?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Corman?
Yes.
Mr. Ellison?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
Judge Covington?
Yes.
Stacey, you want me to email you that, or?
If
Slide
I
it
have it in
down.
Word, is that the only change?
Yeah,
If it's
just that
Word,
one
I'll
word,
change it.
thanks.
So moving on, bid results. This is exciting. Sport Court shared this via email and would like to ask for your consideration of accepting the bid from Hamilton. It's really Hinkle Construction Services for $435,509.75 to construct the 2 tennis courts and 8 pickleball courts, fence, etc. We had another bid from Tennis Technology that was $469. This was bid package 5. It was combination bid for all of them. Then there was 2 alternates, and I need to ask Cam, and we asked Cam this yesterday, but there was 2 alternates. Hinkle submitted an alternate of $32,500 to paint the other 4 existing courts, and Tennis Technology submitted a $28,800 as an alternate. my question to you is, can we accept the big bid package 5 and then reject Hinkle's alternate bid on bid package 5, but accept Tennis Technologies' lower bid?
Is the alternate bid contingent on, from their perspective, from the contractor's perspective? Are they saying, we'll do it if we get
I
the
need,
number one bid?
We need Cam's answer, and I think the answer to that's yes. So now I do want to remind you that, as we discussed, the Musco lighting portion of this will be done separately through a Sourcewell cooperative bid package that we've done Musco lighting on before. And the price budget estimate that they gave me, and I think this is a true, very close estimate, is right at it's $200,000. So we'll share that at our next meeting with you or before. But this just gets the construction started if you accept the low bid from Hinkle. And Ramona Fry with Element reviewed it, said it looked good to her. She could recommend it. So what I'm hearing,
Do we need Cam? Because I'm looking at this and would think that we would just take Hinkle on both.
well, and that's if that's the pleasure of the court, and it does make sense that the alternate is contingent on accepting. This is a conversation, Cam. That's okay.
I was going
Nature
to.
calls.
Copy, everyone.
But we're on that conversation about the low bid package 5 was a combination bid, and that was $435,509.75 by Hinkle. They also submitted an alternate to resurface the 4 existing courts at $32,500. However, Tennis Technology submitted an alternate that was $28,800. Our question is, do we need to accept even though it's higher, because it was?
I think it's lowest and best overall.
You think it's lowest?
I'm going to make a motion to take Hinkle on both.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
I'll simplify
All right.
this process.
I think that's fine.
Not lowest.
Well,
It's lowest and best. So Hinkle is still best because when you combine the two, they're still less. Yes.
so
So
bid package 5 with Hinkle and alternate with Hinkle.
Do you find it to be the best evaluated bid by a qualified bidder?
I do. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, who was second?
I was.
All right. Now,
On those lights, Judge, would they do that after it's finished, probably? or-
I'll go ahead and touch base with them and ask us to submit them.
Need to try to do them at the same time.
But I think part of the process, the conduit and all that is part of this bid package.
Well, I was looking at it, it said something about the conduit up on the top line, but there was no bid on it. On the very top, toward there.
Well, that was just that only bid package 1.
Okay,
The bid
The
package
rest of it
5
is-
was the whole thing.
okay.
And it had that in there. I'm confident. But I'll go ahead and contact Musco and get them to submit a proposal. Now, this next one, bid results, these came in on Wednesday, and we've spent yesterday trying to, can you pull all that out? Okay. This is on the sheriff's access control and security cameras, and we had 2 bids. We had SE Banking Systems, 137.9, and that was 65.8 for the access, 72.1 for the IP video, and then 0 through 2 years. The monthly fee is 0 for the first 2 years, and then after that, $880 a month. And then Bates submitted a bid, $161,420, and that was divided by the access controls was $71,624, IP video was $89,696, but their monthly fee is $1,592. So there's a significant difference there. Now, our Sheriff's Department IT Director, Mr. Betson's not him, but Ricky Lusk, Ricky Lusk sent Cam and I an email. They would prefer Bates, and the reasons they listed was because they've used Bates, the county attorney uses Bates. At one time, we were proposing, because Bates had submitted the new EMS project is much smaller than the sheriff's office, and it's below that 40,000 threshold. So that the EMS was getting quotes from different vendors. Bates had submitted for that as well. He's familiar with Bates. The fobs are interchangeable, is what he was saying. But after talking with Cam does not feel like that any of those things would justify not going with the SC banking systems. Now, I have not.
What is it? SC?
It's Southeast.
Southeast Bank, and they've traditionally done banks
And schools.
and schools. But
They're out of London, Dwayne.
Okay.
what I have not had time to do is call
References or whatever.
references.
Them.
So,
Maybe we should pause then.
well, what I was going to propose is for you all to accept the bid contingent on me confirming the references that they do a good job.
I thought we should pause too, but they're worried it will.
They're worried about
delay
it. They're throwing it out, like, they want to go ahead and get the work started because they don't want it to get in the way of the
They're worried.
drywall and the ceiling stuff.
They're worried passing it. a couple
Understand
weeks
that.
would
Yeah.
cause a problem.
But what I would do is, after I make a couple phone calls, I would let you all know.
What were those, did you send us that, or?
No, yes, Stacy can read it, or it's a.
Post-its or something, handwritten.
Let me just take a picture and give that back to her. Thank you, Steve.
I've seen that Southeast Bank in town.
I'm familiar with it too.
They used to do
way
Kentucky
back,
Bank,
but
I'm pretty sure.
They've been around for a while.
Who's the electrician over there anyway?
References.
On the project, Sheriff.
Yeah, they're
Over
pretty
at
good
the
out
They
there.
listed Forked
Sure.
Bank as a reference, Laurel County Schools, is that right, or Corbin Schools?
Probably
Yeah.
Laurel.
And we'll call and get references, but
Who's our electrician? Because are they going to be under their? I mean, you're kind of, whether you want to be or not, they kind of have to live by their. I mean, they got to work together.
Well, I would assume if these guys are bidding it, they're gonna be the ones showing up to install everything,
Sure.
including conduit in the walls.
You think conduit too?
here, Chip's gonna,
Can I just add something? When the bids came in, one of the requirements, we wanted to know if there was a monthly fee, and the banking system did not include that with theirs. We had to call them, and they came up with the number, but when they came up with the number, they already knew what Bates had submitted.
Oh, that's,
So,
But we
as
have to call all the time for clarification, and there is no monthly fee for
the first
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
So
Do you have a thought or preference between these two?
I mean, it's always, I would lean towards Bates just because, you know, if you're dealing with one vendor for the whole county, that's a lot easier.
And they're known.
it's
And
not
they're
the whole
known.
county, road department, courthouse, nobody else uses them.
But I think EMS will probably use them, just because of the scale, we don't have to do the bids. The sheriff's office is, you know, they have a lot of cameras and access
it
control.
goes above that
and
threshold.
And it takes us above that threshold.
We, you know, it's the pleasure of the court, what you all think's best, and,
Can you all repeat the bid amount?
137.9 SC Banking Systems, 161.420 Bates Security. For the first 2 years, Southeast Banking is zero monthly maintenance fee. After the first 2 years, $880. With Bates, immediately it's $1,592 per month.
That drives up a lot of costs right there. I mean, it really does. It's double the price monthly plus 2 years of nothing. I mean, that's
That's
a
on your,
I was paying for it.
right. Yeah, if I'm personally paying for it, I'm having a hard time with Bates. I mean,
Rick?
well,
I have a big issue with the fact that, and I know this happens, but we competitively bid all the time. And when you're competitively bidding, you all have the same information, so they knew they were supposed to give correct.
But there was zero. They didn't have anything to give. They don't have a monthly fee.
First 2 years.
Yeah.
You're saying you have a problem with them knowing what Bates?
And I don't know
I
how
have
they
a
would
problem
know.
with, yeah, okay, so then really there should not, if that's the case, if they knew they were supposed to submit and they didn't, then it should be zero from here on out.
Until the end of the contract.
Well, what is the contract?
It's probably a 2-year
I don't know
warranty
if
on
there's ever
something.
been a bid that we didn't have to call and clarify something.
And I get that, but.
But what Rick's
but
saying
the
is-
problem is, they already knew what Bates was
How would they
doing.
know?
I don't know, somebody,
You told them.
That they called and asked for the results.
Which is open record. It's public record.
Once it's read, it's
Within
open.
that 30 minutes after we opened them?
Yeah, you had just left, and they called Jared, and he sent them to me.
And you gave them the results?
Told them the results, and I told them that they were missing the monthly fee, and told them what the Bates had
Yeah,
submitted.
I probably wouldn't have told them.
Well, it's open record, you have to.
If you've
Until
opened
we
it,
found out.
Well, it's still open records. You can't hold information back based on other
But we
information.
are allowed to wait until it's voted on.
correct.
I don't know.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah, but
Because I can
still-
get stuff from
but
schools
still,
all the time after
with
it's
that
open records,
knowledge-
public
Yeah, people come to mine all the time.
Rick, go ahead.
Well, but still with that knowledge, it's just not fair. I've got nothing, I've never heard of those folks, and if we're gonna go with Bates, I'll have to recuse because they're a sub of mine on a project we're doing now, but, I'm just trying to make this, the ground level.
And your feeling is,
I'm just, and I'm not, Chip answered that call, and
Yeah, I don't
yes,
think you did
we're,
anything wrong. I mean.
yeah, I'm not saying that
Our
either.
discussion is,
They usually say those out loud.
but like,
Yeah.
Right.
if Bates had been here and Southeast Banking had been here in person, or anybody,
Which is
it's
allowed.
like we read them publicly.
Right.
Right.
There was somebody that called and missed it by 2 hours. that
But
was-
And there was
If
a
we
bid
would've-
submitted.
Right, so,
Let-
but
let-
if they'd all been sitting in a room and you opened them, then that's it.
And you would go and confirm their monthly fee. We do it all the time.
But they didn't have a monthly fee, so there's nothing confirming.
So in, so
Did they
in,
not have a monthly fee, or was it zero?
They did not speak to it. They did not list.
They
so
didn't
in
put zero.
reality, we
Right.
could hold them to zero monthly fee.
Or you can kick out their
Or you
bid.
could kick out their bid.
So what's our,
'Cause it's
legal
incomplete.
advice there? Well, I'm not even trying to say that. I'm just saying what's fair is fair. If they were sitting in the room or not, after the fact, all the information on Bates and all the information on, what's their name?
Southeast Banking.
Southeast Banking is public.
I agree
Correct.
with you because working with public entities all the time, I absolutely agree with you. Once it becomes public, nothing should change
It
unless you
can't.
go into competitive negotiations.
It can't, in my view, it can't change.
Can we do that?
So let's talk about that. Is that a possibility?
Cam?
well,
No, because you had two bids.
I mean, you've got two proposals on the table, is the way I look at it. You can either, I guess Joe Pat has suggested approving SE banking contingent on him vetting it, making sure that they're reputable and so forth.
If there's a motion,
If there's a motion and it's,
but if there's, the pleasure of the court is that SC Banking did not
meet the letter.
meet the letter of the bid and respond, then that's your all's.
And the monthly's for the monitoring system, is that right? The monitoring
They
part?
take care of all the equipment,
Yeah.
covers everything.
I mean, was it in the bid that they had to put what we're gonna
Yes.
charge monthly, and they just didn't do that, so.
It was in the bid.
So if we went back to them and said, hey, we'll take your bid,
But yet
and
it's
by
not.
the way, there's zero.
But like you said, Stacy, it's not uncommon for us to, based on prior practice, to,
We do it all the time.
yeah,
To have to clarify
yeah,
something.
so.
But they would have a chance to come back and say, no, we're not gonna do that. It's always gonna be zero, I guess.
But clarifying and
changing or adding.
That is a material change.
And you're saying, and Rick's status is that the bid was not completely responsive to the advertisement.
Or was it? Because it was left blank, so you assume it's zero.
True. Because I can just tell you in the past, it's been years ago since it's happened. It's happened a couple of times, but years ago was the most recent I can think of. There's a technicality, quote unquote, like we're talking about, much larger bid, much larger project, but we were second low bidder until the first low bidder didn't cross all the T's and dot all the I's, so to speak. They left some issues there, and so it's all public, and they went, "You're disqualified."
We
got
Justice Center.
David, even
Same
if
scenario.
they presented a monthly fee of way more than Bates, the total is still way less. I don't think them saying $880 after 2 years
But if
helped
it-
them or hurt them.
But if it was in the bid that they were supposed to put a monthly
the bid
fee
is the
in
bid.
there.
It doesn't matter if it's cheaper
Yeah,
or
they can't
bid-
change
bid
it
is the
after
bid.
it's
You either
over.
have to complete
Well, I
the
just
bid
wanted to point
accurately.
out their bid was already way less.
Yeah, but
Yeah, no,
if they left
I
out,
get it, yeah.
you can't come back after the fact and add in additional
Add it.
fees or subtract fees, or your bid is your bid.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
I
they
think-
messed up. They messed up. Sounds
And
like they messed
again,
up.
I go back to the Justice Center. We know what our scenario was there when it was put out the bid for general contractors or CM.
Judge, I know.
So-
I
know
think you're
this-
gonna have to kick
I know
them
this
out.
is not a lot of money, but if you're going to go to them, I think that, in my view, the question ought to be,
Hold them to the initial bid.
we're going to hold you to the initial
Fair.
bid. Are you good with that SE
Right.
banking systems? And we see the initial bid as zero going forward.
They're going to
And
drop
give them the
out.
opportunity, because that's what
That's okay.
happened. That's what happened.
So if somebody wants to make a motion to that, and if they decline,
They're usually like a
then we
30-day
go with the
thing where you
base.
gotta-
I have one more question. Do we have
it's not in
is there
perpetuity
a
for
Sure,
term
sure,
that
sure.
We
So-
do these on?
Chip, was this a 2-year agreement?
I can't remember if Bates said it was 2 years.
No, we should have said what it was
It
because
should have been in the bid package.
I don't know that there was anything in the bid requirement about.
Sounds like we
how
better
long
get some
the agreement was.
clarifications.
Well, because
Just trying to remember.
Because you can always,
Bid specs.
Ricky.
because you can always
No, I didn't.
get out of that agreement anyway and have somebody else do the service part. So you could always, not fire them, but choose to go with somebody else over your equipment.
How did they get the call and ask? Like, they submitted their bid, and then they did have a monthly fee. Like, why did they even call and ask? Like, did they have somebody there that heard the bid opening?
No, they called, they just wanted to know what the tab sheet was or what the response was. And then when that happened, we communicated that they did not have listed their monthly service fee, maintenance fee.
So if we didn't have I guess a time period on the bid, what would the potential for Bates monthly, the increase, like how long is that $1,500 a month good for, or $800 a month good for? Or?
I don't remember if theirs had if it was for, I don't remember if theirs was for a year or what it said. I'd have to go back to it.
Okay.
I think,
I think we ought to take a look at it before we.
and then if you're going to give, you give Southeast the opportunity to say, we'll stick with zero, or no, we got, okay. Then you'd have to go back to Bates and say, now you know what they're doing because they know what you were doing. Then you'd have, you see what I mean? It gets
Right,
really,
unless the
it gets
bid
really
had
muddy.
2-year
I'm just
period.
trying to keep it fair. I'm not
Yeah.
really advocating for either one.
Sure, I'm not
like
either.
Stacy. It's obvious there's a big spread in the initial bid. That's
And the
all
monthly
in
fees are
good,
the big
but
ones for me. They're double.
we got
for Bates.
For however long.
to stay
Yeah.
fair.
yeah, and legal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll table this and I'll get back with you.
But yeah,
All right.
thanks, Judge.
What will that do for those you were saying?
So I'm gonna call SE Banking, and I'm gonna ask SE Banking for whatever term they're wanting to offer, if it's a 2-year contract, or really it's probably, because they said, I'll ask them what term they're offering, and I'll ask.
You gotta go back and look at the bid that we put out.
Yeah.
Proposal.
We'll come back and get more information to you. But I'll be just honest with you, might have to call a special call meeting, try to move this thing along once I get everything done.
Yeah. That's legit too, Judge.
Judicial Center MOU, this is good news. RJ, would you speak to this? This is simply a resolution, well, it's an addendum to the agreement that we did previously.
All right, if you recall, during the last legislative session, the General Assembly increased the use allowance for a number of judicial center projects, including the one in Scott County. In ballpark numbers, they increased yours from $3.6 million to about $4 million. It's just confirming that agreement.
There's no resolution. It's just, I shared the agreement with you. It's going from 3.6 to 4.0. Is there an agreement? Yeah. You want to read that real quick?
All right, sure. I don't have to read it.
No, we don't have to read that.
I was just pointing to the number.
It's just that agreement.
It's a third amendment.
Yeah, and it's an addendum. So would there be a motion to approve that? Motion from Rick, second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, RJ. And just real quick, down there at the Justice Center, by the 24th of the month, they're hoping to have sanitary, 24th of November. No, 14th of November. By the 14th of November, they're hoping to have sanitary, stormwater, water, shoring done along Washington, and started on footers. So just so you know.
What's the construction time frame?
24 months.
24 years.
24
And
years.
that start day is
like
a moving
I-65.
target. Next, Chip, will you step up to the mic? The Charter Spectrum service order. I shared this via email as well. This is a big deal. We have an existing agreement with Charter Spectrum, and they have service at 9 locations. And we were trying to get a price to serve internet out at the new EMS station. They came back originally, Chip, like they wanted $30,000.
They wanted $30,000, and then it would be like still $500 a month.
Oh, it's more than that.
Well, it was more if we put in less money for construction.
And we said, we can't do this. Yeah. And so what we ended up doing, and I'll let you read it, Chip.
Call Elon.
Well, but we also went to AT&T.
Yeah.
Just so you know,
So,
and
I talked to-
AT&T proposed the exact same Ethernet hub, with the courthouse being the hub, and their proposal was $5,100 a month. That did include upgrading the same locations to 100 meg, but they might not need that much. But the price is still less expensive with Spectrum to bring the 550 meg locations up to 100 meg. So, Chip, what else you want to say about this?
Well, the way that they're pulling this off is right now each of those locations kind of has its own circuit, connection to the internet. So under this plan, the courthouse would become the hub, and we do it through Ethernet. And so we would be the internet provider for all of those locations. They see that there as a new service, and because they're signing on a new service, they can give us a deal on connecting EMS, even though this deal is actually less money for them if we had gone the original way. So what they're going to do is they're going to hold off on the whole Ethernet thing for now and just go on and build the EMS station out. It will have a circuit installed there. So in the end, we may we may move forward with us becoming the hub at the beginning of the year. When we do that, we will be the circuit here for all those locations. If our circuit were to go down, they're going to leave the circuit at EMS, and it will go up automatically if we go down. So all of our locations have a backup circuit running.
Makes sense. And right now, we pay $37.63 for 9 locations. With the new EMS, it will be $42.99. That's all we have to pay.
And that's getting EMS built and increasing 5 of the 9 locations that are currently at 30 megabytes up to 50 megabytes. And this location up to a gigabyte once it becomes the hub.
Clear as mud, thank you.
I was just thinking, I'm glad we have a
No, I agree.
Object to all the numbers.
What's a meg?
Let's put it this way. So if we do this deal, it will go up to $42.99 and we'll get all that stuff.
Right. all
If
that
we
stuff.
don't do the deal and just add EMS, the bill will go up $5,071. And no locations get upgraded.
Almost sounds like we should do this.
I feel like he's getting me into the new car.
Did you have a question?
Is this one of those 2-year deals?
Yeah.
You know,
This is a 5-year deal.
They're gonna kill me.
that's why my
It's a 5, it's 60 months,
So is that
He's
a
on, not gonna
month,
like you tomorrow.
a month.
that fee, 50? Okay.
Yeah, I defer to Chip's expertise. I think he's doing the right thing. I'm just confused that, we specifically went to separate locations so that we would get the 99.99 up. And now we're moving all of our eggs back in one basket. And, that was my concern is, we have spectrum going down frequently at our location. And, if we move everything back to one location at the courthouse, then, when one goes down, we take out the whole county. That's fine.
But the Lexus Way becomes the backup circuit. You talk to Chris Israel at Madison and James Dingus.
And it's a security improvement because then we're just dealing with one firewall. But we would still have the cradle points running.
Right.
So if your location did go down, you could still jump onto the cradle point.
Yeah.
And we would add the EMS as a backup.
All right. So we'll just have to discuss because, upgrading the cradle point or finding something to make it, we had spectrum go down for 2 days last week and it was a nightmare. And we were at 1.8 dial-up speed.
Is that a hardware problem or is that is it a
problem?
line problem that Spectrum needs to take care of, or is it a hardware problem internally? Okay.
Yeah.
And that can happen anywhere.
But AT&T recommended the same Ethernet,
Making the courthouse the hub.
and then James and Chris Israel, who, Chris is the Madison County IT director, and we have that relationship with them with the Bluegrass data center, and I see what Mike's saying, but if we have the Cradle Point backups and we have the Lexus Way backup, then are we covered? And we'll talk more about it, but I think they're not going to do anything right now. It's going to be in January, February.
Yeah. I think the plan was we'll talk more about the Ethernet hub thing later, but this just gets us going on the construction.
The EMS started.
Because they need to get moving, because there's nothing out there right
Yeah.
now. So they will have to do a lot of construction to get them serviced.
So, would there be a motion to approve this agreement? Motion from Mr. Jones, second from David Livingston. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Halloween, trick or treat, 10/31/68, and I am making that motion. Because I'm not hearing from any moms.
Yeah, that came from the city.
The city's doing that, and that's the traditional time. Would there be a second? Second from Mr. Livingston. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Halloween, 10/31/6 to 8. John Ward new business right now. John Ward and Chief
Oh, what the hell is that?
Justin Baker is here. And we need you all, we need to circle you all in. I met with them earlier this week, and we have a major problem with a pumper. After an inspection, that pumper has, the frame is rusted out in spots, and it's not serviceable.
Correct.
You want to go on?
Yeah, it's an 07. It's one of our frontline pumpers. Chief Baker can tell you more about, he was with the service guy that basically got holes through the frame rail. So according to the manufacturer Pierce, that's a non-serviceable item. It basically had to be totally replaced. They gave us a rough estimate. Again, it's just rough. Basically, because that whole thing would have to come off to replace those frame rails, anywhere from $400,000 on the low end up to $500,000, depending on when they pull it off, what is found. I just don't think that's would be a wise decision, sinking that kind of money into.
I don't think putting that kind of money into.
What about JR?
So that leaves us. So Chief Ward, that leaves us with two backups.
We had two reserves, so we had to take, and they're both 05s. We had to take one of the 05s and move it into the frontline position, which left us with one reserve. Currently, that 05 that was in frontline went out of service yesterday. It was stolen some kind of engine code, so it's now at Clark's. So then we moved our last remaining reserve up into the front line. We don't have any reserves currently right now. We do have 3 pumpers on order. The first pumper is scheduled to be here December 2025.
So we paid for that.
Yeah.
So here's what I suggested. I suggested to John to call the dealer at Atlantic and to see if we could use the money that we've already spent towards a stock pumper that they roll off periodically, and see if we could get it sooner. And what has been the response to that?
So basically, I guess periodically Pierce, the manufacturer, throws stock units in the line process. Because like currently right now, our 3 pumpers are in the process of build. But Pierce periodically will throw what they call stock pumpers in that mix, which means they're already close to starting to be built. They have, like what they call stock pumpers haven't even been built yet. But the stock pumpers, whenever they periodically release them, is on a 5 to 6 month build time. So basically in 5 to 6 months you could have a pumper. Nobody knows when Pierce, they usually try to do it I think every month or every other month, but currently they haven't released any yet. But what they release, nobody knows until they release them. But basically if that's a route we wanted to go, we would be basically tied to what they have released. You can do a little customization with them, but it's not a lot. I mean, you basically would have to choose and pick what they got coming out, or what's there.
Or we could.
How big a difference is a base pumper, whatever stock pumper versus what you all might have ordered?
So basically, they gave me a rough range, anywhere from 940 to 1.1 for a stock pumper. Again, it depends.
What would have been the cost of the one we would have ordered?
Well, our last ones that we ordered back June 2023, the 2 pumpers were $1,020,000.
Just cost increase.
Yeah.
There is a cost increase with the stock one versus the one we would have
Just
for ours.
overall.
Oh yeah. So still similar pricing on the ones you all would have chosen versus the one that's coming off stock, right?
Yeah. And it just depends what options are on those stock trucks, what motors are in them.
So you don't get to choose as much. You're buying a house already built. You might get to paint a little bit.
Basically on paper.
Right.
That's already been through their engineering and all that. You can tweak it a little bit, but you can't tweak it a lot.
Right.
So we've paid $806,835 towards this pumper that's scheduled to be delivered in December 25. 14 months, whatever you want to call it. If they would let us use that towards a stock pumper that comes off in 5 months, is that what you all want to do, or do you want The other option is to beg, borrow,
Ride it out for those next, or the
like
stock
beg
ones.
Lexington, beg Georgetown, if they have a spare pumper, to let us
I guess you still
borrow.
don't know though that it. I mean, you don't know even if one comes available that you can get it, right? Because I mean, I'm sure
There's
other
no
people are
guarantee.
saying.
Other people are going to try to jump in too.
Right.
That was one thing we were told that, you know, whenever Pierce releases these, you got to be ready to jump on them because
Sure.
if you don't, somebody else will.
Right.
Atlantic, the dealer, told us that, you know, if they know we are interested,
They'll
they
jump
will
on it quicker.
commit to it, you know, in order for us to go through the process where the meetings are, you know, for approval and all that. But if Atlantic knows that we're really interested, then they would basically go before us to secure it.
But it would be an increase of a couple
Like,
hundred grand. Or
it'd probably could be a couple hundred extra grand. I just, like, this was, you all
Or-
needed to know this, and
Yeah.
and we needed to have some direction.
Or you could use the funds that you paid for the ladder, which would be more than, you know.
We paid that 803,000. Then we paid in July this year 1.5 million towards the ladder truck. That's on order, and that's not due. The ladder is not due until when's it due, John?
The ladder is October 2025.
So October of next year.
little bit
And we
early.
paid for it.
Yeah.
And we've got these other two pumpers on order, and we haven't paid anything for them.
That's correct.
And they're not even being built then.
Like none of this is like not
No,
even being built.
once it goes, starts on the line, you're five, and that's the thing. It takes 5 to 6 months to build. But we're just in a list waiting to be built. You know, to get.
We're in the queue.
Let's make sure when they build it doesn't rust out.
Well, one of the things that we did do with what we currently have on order, part of when we spec'd it, is to spray all the frame rails and everything with some kind of coating. But see, these things are 07s and 05s, so back in that day, I don't know what was optioned or, you know what.
So Ryan Pratt was like in his
I think
high school.
So, does somebody?
Got him back there.
I mean, does somebody have any other comments? Do we want to direct them to try to get in line for a stock? And
In our overall apparatus plan that we started with back when we first started this was ultimately to replace all 4 pumpers. But we just didn't anticipate, you know, it was through different fiscal years, we just didn't anticipate trying to.
Well, I want to be
get all of
careful
this quick.
of having all of them the same age.
I know.
You know.
I
you know.
agree, because 20 plus years from now.
Right.
Some
We're back in the
chief is
same
gonna
boat
be
where you got-
sitting up here with.
Right. It's tough.
You know.
How old you gonna be?
I'm like David, I hope I'm.
Somewhere else.
On the beach somewhere, yeah. But, and that's where I think it's really, really important to, you know, have a replacement plan.
Sure.
It's just.
Rotate it, you know, every
because
3 or so
when you
years.
don't, you're stuck.
And I think John and Chief Baker, since they've been very proactive about trying to.
Do we know of anybody like surrounding county or Lexington that has one like how we do, how we have some reserves? Do they have some reserves that we could?
Like Georgetown, they basically have 2 reserves. One of the reserves right now is committed to they've got a training academy going, so that's kind of committed to them.
Yeah.
Their other reserve, as of the other day, they were in it because one of
They're broke down, too.
apparatuses in Shelbyville with an engine issue. So they don't currently have anything available. Lexington, we have yet to reach out, but we could ask them. Basically, you know, to be able to borrow one whenever.
Just to get it
Because right
to
now
work.
we're good.
As long as you're
we
running.
don't have nothing break down.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that we benefit a lot for sure. And you pay more, you know, you don't know that you're going to be able to get one. So it's almost like you almost have to ride it out and beg, borrow, and steal to get us to where we get our new ones, the way you want them.
The one might be available in 5-6 months. The other is
Maybe.
waiting 14 months.
It might be available, but you don't know that you're going to get it.
Yeah, you don't know.
And so
So
I think either way you're going to have to beg, borrow, and steal for 6 months, no matter what, right? Or hopefully you get yours running that you have.
Can you all make some calls and ask we could drive up to Ontario and get the one we sold back.
That one. But that was a different type of.
I'm just kidding.
I know. Different type of truck. So I think it's a good idea, Ryan. We'll call around and we'll share information. I just felt it was important that we share information today and not let it go any longer. So we'll do that. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Service awards are getting ready to start here. I'm very appreciative of that and of all of our folks. And then Michael Hennigan's got some important information to our farming community. And I appreciate you being very attentive to making sure that we communicate this. And if you could share that, that'd be great, Mike.
Absolutely. On October 1st of this month, October 1st of this year, United States Department of Agriculture declared that there were 10 severe and 21 contiguous counties in Kentucky that were affected by the drought and basically deemed them as natural disaster areas. Because those declarations were made, there are low interest and no interest loans available to farmers affected by the drought in 2024. So, the application process is on the USDA website, but I'd be happy to help anybody that wants assistance to navigate that process. Sometimes people have a little bit of a struggle understanding the legalese in order to make it happen. But there is a deadline. You have to be applied by June of 2025. So, the sooner you start getting your documentation together and proof that you had a serious loss, the quicker we can start working through the process.
So I really appreciate Mike bringing this up because it's important to our farming community and farm operators. So after Mike pointed this out, and I said, Mike, maybe we should publicly talk about this at the next meeting during new business, I reached out to the Ag Extension, and they're going to, one of the things that was suggested, putting it in their newsletter, and then also trying to do a social media share from the Ag Extension and from here. So anybody else have any thoughts? That's a good path, I think. Mike, I appreciate it very, very much.
No problem. Thank you.
And then JR shared Triport Road is finished. Is that right, JR? And then JR and his crew, y'all, 50 big loads of tree. I mean, from that last windstorm. So just, JR, thank you all for your all's work and getting those roads cleared. And as always, does anyone else have any new business?
Judge, I sent a picture out to everybody on the court of the farmer's market. I'm just wondering where they're at. It looks like all their structure's up. It looks like they're probably waiting on metal for the roof.
I think the 2 weeks is the timeline I heard on the roof going up, and then the cupola after that. The big thing is it looks beautiful. I think it's awesome. They're working on, like we got to get that thing patched, the parking lot patched, and all the blacktop up to the lip of the base before the asphalt plant shuts down. But I think we can do it. I think they can do it.
The clock tower.
Clock tower, hey, it's fixed, isn't it, JR?
No.
How much?
90% done.
So the guy's gonna come back Monday, is what you said.
Said it.
You can tell time up to 11 o'clock.
I come in this morning, it's 12 o'clock. I was like, man, I'm late
No,
today.
I don't know if y'all saw that crane, but that crane looked like it was going to the moon. And they got the new faces put on, and those faces, you can go up there and they pull back in. The center pulls back in. Hopefully, we won't have to get a crane in the future. So
we do it old faces.
Where they go to your place, the old faces?
Yes, if anybody wants to purchase one.
I think we should put them out to bid.
Yeah.
How big are they?
They're 6 foot plus, I think.
Yeah, 6 foot diameter.
Fit in your.
Yeah.
I need them with hands.
All right. Would there be a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion. Chris.
I withdraw my motion.
All right.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to let the court know that we have started our annual winter coat drive. And This year will be a little different because we have a community paramedic that's already identified some folks in need. We have flyers in a digital format, so if anybody's got any ideas of where we'd be best to put those, we've already approached some businesses around town, but.
Will you email that out?
Sure.
All right.
So we can share on social media and stuff.
Anybody else? John Ward.
Just want to remind fire prevention parade 17.
Okay. All right. Motion, second. All those in favor? We're adjourned.
So head out to the park.
Yeah, it's now.
Need something.
Yeah. Really hoped it to be 6 to 2.